Businessmen remain hopeful that Congress will approve a resolution that proposes amendments to economic provisions of the Constitution. The measure is due for approval on second and third readings in the lower house. Freddie Abando reports.
The House is also pressed for time in approving Resolution Number 1, which proposes amendments to restrictive economic provisions of the Constitution. No less than Speaker Feliciano championed Resolution Number 1, which is a major step to liberalize stringent provisions in the Constitution which limit foreign investments in several sectors of the economy. It's pending for approval on second and third reading in the House. The Belmonte resolution proposes the insertion of the phrase "unless provided for by law" in foreign ownership provisions of the Constitution to include land, public utilities, natural resources, media, and advertising. The insertion will pave the way for Congress to pass legislation to relax the entry of foreign investments for these sectors.
And certainly the resolution of both houses, one that was introduced by Speaker Belmonte and its counterpart by Senator Recto in the Senate, that passage would be an indication that the country has the political will to prepare to make changes, because those resolutions only add the phrase "except as provided by law" to the restrictions in the Constitution. As far as I know, no other country in the world has placed these kinds of restrictions in its Constitution. Such restrictions are usually placed in legislation or administrative orders. So Speaker Belmonte has indicated that this is one of the top three priorities that he has for the House when they return in session tomorrow.
Is it doable?
I think it's doable. It just takes political will. And besides, it doesn't change the restrictions. What it changes is the ability to discuss changing the restrictions and possibly pass a law by Congress in the future.
The Belmonte resolution has been endorsed by the Makati Business Club and the Joint Foreign Chambers of Commerce in the Philippines. John Forbes, senior advisor of the American Chamber of Commerce, is hopeful Congress will pass the Belmonte resolution. But charter reform in Congress does not have the support of the president.
I think economists and business leaders in the Philippines have recommended change restrictions since at least 2000. There are two presidential commissions that made that recommendation. All the major business groups right now, the Philippine domestic business groups as well as the foreign chambers, support changing them. Now, what you're talking about, as I earlier said, is amending the Constitution to allow the Congress to pass a law. We're not talking at this point about what such a law would say. I don't think there'll ever be a law in the Philippines that allows unrestricted foreign ownership of land. But you could talk about amending, having a law that would allow a foreigner to own a house lot or a factory to own its factory, or if you had open retail trade, perhaps a commercial center or a mall to also own its land in a restricted way.
It's the consensus of the business sector that reforms of the economic provisions of the Constitution will boost foreign direct investments. Although the Philippines registered $6.2 billion in FDIs last year, it's not good enough for economic expansion in the future. If and when amendments fail, Ford stressed continuity of the country's economic gains beyond the Aquino administration may provide the spark for more foreign investments. Budget Secretary Florencio Abad said former local government secretary Marroas has the and expertise to sustain the president's straight path of governance to attract more foreign direct investments for inclusive growth.
Daang matuwid. I mean, the achievements of this administration can no longer be denied. Number two, the leadership of the president and his continuing popularity. And of course, the person of Secretary Rojas. I mean, if you talk about integrity, it's not an issue. If you talk about experience, not an issue. Talk about competence, and it's just shown it. So, and those are really the important elements that you look for in a national leader. So, and then plus the fact that He has the backing of the president, and he's been identified as a co-pilot of the success of these past 5 years.
For the People's Television Network, this is Freddie Abando reporting.